after we sold out in early March, we turned on an email sign up and ended up with more than 500,000 people on our waiting list.
Hi everyone, welcome to episode 1 of season 3 of the Make It Happen show. I'm Tim Morris, the CEO here at The Entourage, and today I'm joined by Simon Griffiths, the co-founder and CEO of Who Gives a Crap. And what an amazing business to have on for this special episode, because Who Gives a Crap is really making a difference. They're on a mission to provide clean drinking water and sanitation to people around the world, and they do that by selling toilet paper. But toilet paper that really delights their customers. And that's a lot of what we dig into in this episode. We talk about how to deliver a product or service seamlessly, then how to delight your customers on top of that, and then how to get them to help amplify your message to other potential customers. We also talk a lot about how Simon's built an amazing team to help support the journey, and how he's had them buy into the vision and the culture of the business and help take their vision further. So if you're in the business of making an impact and you want to deliver great products and services and build a team to help you do that, this is the episode for you. Let's get into it. Simon Griffiths, it is so good to have you on the show. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good. It's been a really intense 2 years now that I think about it. But yeah, really good. Yeah, feeling like we're in a great place. So excited for everything that's happening now.
Nice. Well, because you've had some crazy times over the last 2 years. Well, we've all had crazy times the last 2 years. But some businesses were really challenged. Some businesses had amazing growth, and I think you guys are probably in that latter camp. But with growth comes also challenge. So how's it been?
We're in both camps, to be honest. Yeah. So I think everyone sort of instantly says, running a toilet paper company in 2020 or through the pandemic, you must have had a bunch of amazing growth. And that's, I think that's part of the story. After we sold out in early March, we turned on an email sign up and ended up with more than 500,000 people on our waiting list. So that was
Wow.
kind of a bit of a shock, 2 years ago now. And so, yeah, that was a pretty huge business challenge for the team to, everyone to get their head around how we tried to service that many people. And the team did an amazing job, and that ultimately resulted in this massive donation, because we give away half of our profits each year. And so we ended up donating a bit over 5 million Australian dollars in the end of June 2020, which was just, incredible. But off the back of that, global supply chains melted down. We're still kind of in the thick of that now. That's, I think, been something that no one could have predicted. It seems completely disconnected to the pandemic, but is intertwined in a really interesting way. And so it's also a very hard problem to solve quickly. You can't just put more ships on the water and make more containers. Like, it's not that simple, and that stuff takes time as well. And so, being a company that moves a bulky, low value product around, we've been probably harder hit than a lot of people on the supply chain side. So yeah, super interesting to kind of navigate that off, what was already a challenging 2021 became challenging in a very different way.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, because you've got all this huge demand. How do you deal with that? And then when you have the supply issue as well, it's like a compounding effect. How's your team gone through this whole process?
Yeah, really good. I think really the early on through the pandemic, I think our team realized that this was kind of the moment we'd been training for. Like, this
Mm,
was, the 6 years prior were basically about getting us ready to give us our moment, and it was our time to shine. And so, yeah, March, April, May of the pandemic, the team really rolled up their sleeves and jumped in, kind of super excited to try and break the back of this very hard problem of how do you get product to the most people possible, and did a really awesome job on that. I think then through August, September, most of our Australian team are in Victoria.
mm,
Got a lot of Americans and Filipinos in our business as well. So kind of rolling lockdowns all around the world, but especially the Victorian team, everyone had holidays planned through, the winter period. And
mm.
when it's winter in Victoria, you go somewhere warm. And so when we were stuck in this, 5 kilometer radius thing, everyone was working from home, kids at home. I think that was really hard. And so we ended up giving everyone basically an extra week off. I think
Mm,
now this has become quite common. A lot of companies have done this, but
mm,
when we did it, no one else we'd seen globally had done this yet. And
mm,
um, we realized that the team needed a circuit breaker to kind of get them through to the traditional holiday period at the end of the year. And so that extra week off, was just amazing in terms of the level of recovery and therefore the uplift in productivity that came from that as well.
mm.
And now everyone's done this. Yeah,
Yeah.
Spotify, Nike. I've seen so many companies do this since, and it's just something that makes complete sense. And
Yeah.
then 2021, I think everyone was hoping 2021 would be an amazing year. I remember a lot of Twitter talking about, the American summer being the hot girl summer when everyone was kind of vaxxed and getting back into the swing of life. But the reality was that, yeah, the supply chain challenges just
Mm,
really started to get, a little bit strange in Feb, March, and by the end of the calendar year were like
mm,
just completely dire. And
mm.
so that's been really, again, kind of a moment for our team to shine, but now really the supply chain team rather than the kind of marketing,
Mhm,
retention,
mhm,
and some of our supply chain that were working on breaking the back of the big problem in 2020. So
mm.
2021's been quite different, but yeah, I think we're in a really good place now. Excited to come out the back of it, just a lot stronger as a business than what we were when we went into all of those supply chain challenges,
Yeah, nice,
roughly a year
nice.
ago. Yeah.
A couple of interesting things in that. First of all, great to see Spotify and all the rest taking your lead. Well done. And the other part there is that I think that's awesome that you're looking after your team members because they're obviously really connected to the mission of the business. Like you're doing good things, like you're really making an impact. But that can't always be enough. And so obviously you had a good finger on the pulse of how they were feeling. And do you think you acted quickly in that sense?
Yeah, so we're very much a culture first business. We believe that culture comes before everything else. If you get culture wrong, then your customer service is bad. Your physical product's probably going to be bad. And so we keep a very close ear, eye, finger. I don't know what you put on culture, but we're always trying to sort of just make sure that we're not doing things that could be problematic in the long run,
Mm,
and trying to get an early read on that. And that's definitely what we got in this instance. We could, from the surveys that we were doing weekly with our staff, we realized that people's productivity was going down. And as an executive team, I think all of us knew that we weren't doing our best work as well.
mm,
And so, we realized we needed a circuit breaker to get us through to the end of the year. And yeah, our sort of people lead had the idea that we should perhaps give everyone a week off. And as soon as she said it on the exec team call, everyone said, we've got to do it. Like, it just makes total sense. But coming back to purpose, I think the tricky thing about purpose is I actually think you're potentially at even greater risk of burnout than
mm,
a company that doesn't rally around its purpose, because people are so invested in what you're trying to achieve, and everyone understands that it's bigger than the individual. And if something's bigger than the individual, then the individual can sometimes believe that they need to be sacrificed to the thing that's bigger than them. And that's not how we think about things. But you can end up in a situation where you feel like you can't let your team down
mm,
or the company down, or that you just need to do this extra thing to enable us to unlock the next thing that we're trying to get to. And that can be a dangerous place. And
mm.
so um, you know um, I don't want to say with great power comes great responsibility, but there's probably a similar saying to that applies in this
Uh,
situation.
a Spider-Man quote is always a good quote. So well done. But that's super interesting, actually, because I think we saw something similar with our team here at the Entourage as well. So particularly our coaches that work with the business owners who are so invested in the members, like they are so invested in helping these business owners grow that when the business owners are going through a very challenging time, as a bunch of them did in COVID. Then the coaches took on tons of that emotional strain. Um, and yeah, it really took a toll on them for a little while. Now that we're on the other side, things are getting a lot better. But I think it's because, as you say, they're so invested in the purpose of the business, so invested in the outcomes that they just take on way more than they probably should, and certainly more than someone in a corporate environment that doesn't really care about the product or the customer or whatever. So that's super interesting. And in hindsight, we should have been more attuned to that even here. I want to take a step back though. Let's go way before COVID, right? It's amazing that you did have solid growth. You managed to donate more, totally get the supply chain challenges as well. But it certainly was an overnight success. Like you've had 10 years before that of making toilet paper sexy. What have been some of the kind of building blocks to that? Like, how have you actually even gotten into the market, started to make an impact, and be in a position where you can really ride the wave up?
Yeah, I think we'll talk about this, but before jumping into it, I think a lot of what I will say will feel a little bit almost like table stakes in running a business
Mm,
today. But what's interesting is that these were things that we were doing 10 years ago. And
mm,
so, it took maybe 6 or 7 years before they started to become on the radar of other people. And then the last few years have become, a really kind of more of a playbook way of thinking about things. But they're the foundations that we built our business on and were very counterintuitive when we first started. And so I think the biggest things that we did were really early on. We thought about how to innovate in the customer experience rather than the physical product. And so when you think about toilet paper, you don't need 5, 8, 10 plies. Like the actual innovation in the physical product isn't really all that necessary. But the room for innovation is everything that comes around the physical product. So for us, that means the impact, whether that's social or environmental, with the donations, or how we think about how we make and transport our product. Customer service when something goes wrong,
mhm,
like how do we really innovate in that area to deliver a customer experience that's much better than what you can get elsewhere. Beautifully designed packaging,
mm,
free fast home delivery, um, limited editions that we now do 2 or 3 times a
mhm,
year, where we change up the wrappers and create a bit of a different experience.
mm,
We've got one live at the moment called Where's the Loo, which is like a Where's Wally with 12 different worlds, but you have to find the toilet, because finding a toilet is actually the reality for 2 billion people who don't have access to toilets today. And so we do all of these things that exist around the product,
mm,
and that's what creates this ultimate experience that is much better than
mm,
when you go and buy plastic wrap toilet
mm.
paper on the shelf in a supermarket.
That really gels with our view of product. So we always say product is about, first of all, delivery on your promise. You know, deliver the product or the service, whatever you've promised the customer, and that's more the mechanics of it. But then you level it up through delighting the customer. We always say that's the dynamics. Like, how do you add an emotional connection on top? You know, a real resonance there, and then how do you amplify that, or get your customer to amplify it for you, so it kind of repeats the cycle. And I mean, I know you guys definitely do the delight thing really well, and I've heard you talk about delight a little bit. Do you want to dig into that?
Yeah, so we sort of the first two parts of what you talked about there, we talk about as deliver then delight.
Mm,
So the delight
mhm.
doesn't matter unless you can
Yeah.
deliver. And so in our instance, you want to think about how to make the customer experience, the need, I need to buy the product. You want to make that part of the customer experience entirely frictionless.
Mm,
So it's ideally the fewest number of clicks from landing on your website to checking out, and something showing up at your house
mm,
really fast, and that should be super
mhm,
frictionless. And then the delight, we talk about being in the business of delight. So we sell toilet paper, but we're in the business of delight.
mm,
And when you're in the business of delight, you can think about all of the things that you put around the business, around that frictionless experience, so that if customers want to dig deeper, they can, and find something that's different to what they'd get somewhere else. So they're kind of the two big parts of that. And then the third part is, you said, amplifying and getting other people to find out about what you're doing. For us, word of mouth is always been our number one driver of new customers, and it still is today. And really, the way that we do that is by creating moments that are very easy for someone to go and tell someone else about your
mm,
product. So, when someone's opening our boxes for the first time, we're saying, how do we make that so fun, so joyous that someone wants to take a photo of that moment and share it with one of their friends? Our email receipts, we're saying, how do we make them so unexpectedly funny or clever that someone would want to forward that email receipt to one of their friends? And we think through all of the different parts of our customer experience in that way, by literally breaking every single part down into a stage,
mm,
from I'm thinking about buying toilet paper to I'm going to the shops or a website. thinking through every single part of those stages and then saying, how do we make that part of the stage frictionless?
Mhm.
And then what's the delight that we can insert there, or where's the extra value we can deliver to the customer that they can't get somewhere else?
Yeah.
And when you layer all of those things on top of each other, then you create a product that's highly differentiated and hopefully has a lot of emotional attachment to it.
Yeah.
And we're rambling a little bit, but just bear with me on this one. You've just had me think about something else. But I think when we try to make people fall in love with products, and when you fall in love with someone, there's part rational,
Mm.
which is about, does this person show up at the time that they say they will? Do they lie to me? Are they truthful? And then there's part emotional, which is, do they look great? Do they make me feel great about myself? And so, the rational benefits of our product is that frictionless customer
Mm.
experience. And then the emotional benefits or all of the other stuff that we can layer on there. Does this person give back? Do they have the same set of ethics and values that I do?
Mhm.
And if we can get that right, that's how you start to make people fall in love with things, whether it's people or products.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and I love that's exactly how we think about it as well. I've got a little story for you that I think might showcase how I think you're nailing a couple of those things. Now, obviously, I haven't told you this yet, but I was around at a friend's place not long ago, maybe only a couple of weeks. Actually, it's funny that you mentioned 6 ply, 7 ply. My friend could definitely like if they wanted to, they could have like silk finished toilet paper. But no, I walk into their bathroom, and there's who gives a crap right there, and I look at it and I at home have my favorite little saying on one of the rolls as a customer. I love the one that says, please do more ones and twos. And I look down at that, it wasn't that one. And I'm like, I wonder if it's around here somewhere. I turn around and I open this huge set of cupboards in their spare bathroom, and it is full of who gives a crap. I don't know how many rolls are there. There must have been a couple of hundred. And so I search through it and I find the one that says, please do more ones and twos. And I run downstairs, River, and I go, this is my favorite roll. I think it's so funny. Look, everyone wasn't quite as amused as I was in that moment, but I think I'd gone through that whole cycle of they've obviously got the product seamless delivery. It's definitely delighting me, and I'm trying to amplify it to everyone else. But out of context, it was a little strange.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like the point is that if you can do that with toilet paper, you can do that with anything,
Yeah.
right? Like that's kind of what's so interesting about our product in particular.
And do you think it's actually been a benefit to you that it is a like in one regard, toilet paper is toilet paper, right? The product side of it, the actual physical product, the innovation isn't super hard. And has that allowed you then to say, right, we've got that sorted. Let's innovate in terms of the emotional experience? Has that been a benefit for you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's also toilet paper is an interesting product because it's also a product that a lot of people don't think about, but they have very high brand loyalty
Mm.
because they say, "I don't care what I get as long as it's that brand,"
Oh.
because they know that that's been a reliable choice for them in the past, and they don't want to place any risk in this very kind of personal moment in the bathroom. Um, or be embarrassed if they have friends that come around or something along those lines. And so I think there's two sides to it. One is that that there hasn't been a ton of innovation, particularly in marketing, which has been
Mm.
focused around puppies, pillows, feathers, and bears globally. It's the same. And so what we did was create an opportunity to talk about what the product was actually used for by tying it back to the cause that we're
Mm.
trying to
Mhm.
solve. And that gave us not only differentiated marketing, but marketing that no one else could go after
Mhm.
because their brands don't allow them. Their brand guidelines won't let them talk about what the product's actually used
Mm.
for. Um, but yeah, I think it's also a challenging one because there is a lot of brand loyalty there, and so you have to figure out how to switch someone up from what they're using, and that's not about just trial; it's also about
Mhm.
repeat purchase and coming
Mhm.
back.
What's been the best campaign or thing that you've done? I mean, I love that "Where's the loo?" That sounds awesome. But what's been your favorite thing that you've ever done?
That is a no one has ever asked me that before. It is a very tough question to answer. I think, we do a lot of amazing limited editions that are super fun. We won some pretty big awards a couple of years ago for one that was kind of like an exquisite corpse where you had different heads, bodies, and legs on rolls, and you could turn them around to create different creatures. And so I'm not a designer, but all of our designers were like gushing because we won the golden pencil or something, like a huge global award for this edition that we did. which was pretty amazing to kind of, see toilet paper being recognized as like a designed product that, delivers that bit of delight to people.
Yeah.
Maybe one of my favorite things that we did was during the first month of the pandemic. We talked about being in the business of delight. We'd sold out of toilet paper. So if we were just a toilet paper company, we shouldn't have been engaging in any marketing or advertising when we had no
Mm,
inventory to sell.
mm,
But we said, we're in the business of delight. And in March 2020, it feels like the world needs a little bit of extra delight. And so we took out full page ads in the Age and the Sydney Morning Herald, advertising that we'd run out of toilet paper, but we thought that everyone else had too. And so we'd printed this ad for you to use in the case of an emergency. And we saw that being shared on social media just over and over again, delivering that bit of delight in a moment where the world felt like it was falling to pieces.
Yeah, that's very clever. Awesome. We've talked about your team a little bit, but I'd love to really dig into how it's evolved just over the whole journey. So, I imagine, early days you would have been doing everything, right? You and your co-founders and the early people on the journey would have been absolutely doing everything. And then, so I'm interested to know, like, what are the big levelings up of the team? What's it like now as you guys go on your future growth plans? What do you need in place? I'd just love to hear that whole journey.
Yeah, sure. So we started, as a bootstrap business. We were bootstrapped for the first 8 or 9 years. So, I think I was working a 3/4 week as the only kind of team member
Hmm.
initially, and then I became the third employee to actually get paid because we couldn't afford to pay me, and so we had to bring on other people to, help us get the things that we had to do done before I could actually draw a salary myself. So yeah, very much, really did everything initially, and then over time have gone through that journey of chief doer to chief manager to, chief leader or visionary or whatever you kind of want that third one to
Mm,
be. And that's been a pretty challenging journey because most of our team hadn't had that much experience working for other people before they worked for
mm,
us. And so we didn't know what good management looks like. We didn't know, you know, what were the right things to say to people at the right moments to make them feel, really valued even as employees. And so we had to learn all of that stuff as we went, which meant that we made a ton of mistakes along the way. But really kind of, being conscious about putting people first through that whole journey meant that we wanted to hire a head of people much earlier than a normal business
mhm.
does. And she's now part of our executive
Yeah,
team and does an amazing job, kind of putting the rigor into all of the people processes in our business, which I think now is kind of one of our, much stronger parts of our business overall,
yeah.
which is great.
What stage was that at? Like, roughly how many people in the business when you brought a head of people in?
I think we were 17, but we were also fully remote at the time.
Mm,
So I think in a remote team, you feel the strain of growth faster on the people side of the business than you do in a team
mm.
where you're all in the office
Yep.
together, because the lack of water cooler conversations or overhearing what other parts of the business are working on. You have to design people, processes, and systems to enable those things to occur without letting it tear the company
Mhm.
apart if you end up with people who are too siloed or don't have the right management tools and processes in place. And so I think a lot of people do that, get ahead of people around 50
Mhm.
people. But yeah, we chose to do it much, much, much earlier because we said, basically, the right person in this role will give us, an extra 10 to 20% extra productivity
Mm,
out of the entire team.
mhm,
Like, this role pays for itself
mm,
on, week one,
mm.
basically. And so that was, yeah, a very conscious early decision that we made and something that's been very powerful for
Yeah.
us ever since.
It's kind of I was actually thinking the other day that, businesses that do stay remote after the pandemic and say they have these savings from their office spaces, I think the first thing they're gonna have to invest in is teams or people to keep everyone together, aligned, motivated. Because 'cause you're right, it is, people come into in a growth business, when people are together, they kinda share the journey a little bit more, and we certainly saw it. When you're fragmented, it's just tougher on everyone individually. So those that stay remote, probably gonna have to follow your footsteps here as well.
Yeah, and now, we moved to a hybrid structure before the pandemic, about 2 years prior, where we said, instead of hiring anyone anywhere, we're gonna hire in our core city hubs, so
Yeah.
Melbourne, Los Angeles, Manila, and then we have a remote team in China
Mhm.
and now in Europe as well. And the idea was that by hiring in those cities, we could bring people together on whatever frequency they chose as a city hub
Mm,
to come together.
mhm,
So in Melbourne, everyone said, I actually prefer working with my headphones on at home. So I'll come into the office, 1 day a week at least, and I'll choose the day. Whereas in LA, they said, we're more collaborative in terms of, our functional responsibilities with marketing, creative, digital product. So we want to be in the office 3 days a week, and it's going to be Monday, Wednesday,
mhm,
Thursday. And so, by taking that approach, we got the benefits of FaceTime with also the benefits of a more flexible working environment. And we say there's a ton of benefits from having that remote setup. You can prioritize life over work a lot of the time. For me, for example, I prefer to be in nature, so I can live outside of a city and commute into the city on a less regular basis when I need to for meetings. Um, but it does come with some, there's some tension there. There's some challenges as well, and so you have to build the right systems around those challenges to try and overcome them. For me personally, I'd split time between Australia and Los Angeles. I'll do that again this year for the first time. So really start to truly understand what it's like working out of that hub
mm.
on the other side of COVID now.
Yeah, yeah. We've got a team in Manila as well. Had that team there for about 4 years now, and I used to get over there heaps to work with that team, and then obviously haven't been for 2 years. And you're right, they're at different stages. They're still all remote, whereas our team here in Sydney is back in the office a couple of days a week and working from home a couple of days a week. But the Manila team is still all remote, and we're starting to think, okay, how and how frequently do we bring them back together? When can we get back over there? Yeah, yeah. But you're right, there's still a couple of things to change.
One of the biggest moments of the year for us has always been bringing the whole team together,
Oh yeah.
and so we do that in a different city every year. So the first year was in Melbourne, and we brought our Filipino and US teams over to in a lot of cases like meet customers for the first time, see product out in the wild for the first time.
Try good coffee for the first time.
Yeah. And then, the next year was in Cambodia where we went to see WaterAid's work
Mm,
firsthand. The year after in Manila, trying to build empathy for what it's like to work in the Filipino hub. Yeah, right now, we're missing a lot of the core stuff that we do to bring the team together and rally around a shared set of goals once a year.
yeah. And so what are you doing sort of in the meantime to preserve or even amplify the culture and the connection with the vision of the business? Are there a couple of new things you've added in?
Yeah, so I sort of hinted at this, but we used to take the team into the field every second year to visit the work of our partners
Mm,
firsthand, and that was an amazing moment to kind of connect into the purpose of the business. Um, this year, we've got a team heading into the field, just a very small team heading into the field to start kind of thinking about how we do this without having the entire company there for
mm,
those experiences. And it's twofold. One is that there's an equity issue around some people not being able to travel because of what's going on in their country, and the other is that now we're a team of 165 people.
mm.
You can't take 165 people into a small village and say, "Hey, like let's talk about your toilets." Like it's not an experience that makes any sense for the people on the other side of that
Yeah.
equation. And so we have to change up how we connect people into the purpose, given that the last time we were able to do it, we were a team of 34 people, and it was a bit different.
Yeah, yeah. I can see the poor village just wanting the 165 to leave. I just want to go to the toilet in peace. Get out of here.
Yeah, for real.
um, but I think everyone's journey for the last 2 years, there has been silver linings in all of the different challenges that we've had to navigate. Like I think if you can, for a lot of people, you've been able to figure out new ways of working that once, well, if everything's ever back to normal, who knows? But back to the new normal, we figure out new ways of working that actually in the future will be better. So if you cracking that nut of how do we immerse ourselves, but we can't take everyone, but we want everyone to have the experience, like you'll figure that out and it'll be a smarter way for your next stage of growth. We've done similar stuff with how we deliver our product and also how you hire and lead team members. And so it's about, I'm a big advocate of like, yes, there's been a lot of change. Yes, we've had to change how we operate our businesses, but there should in each of those changes be a good silver lining that you can carry forward with.
Yeah, I think that's 100% correct. And a good example of that is that week where we brought everyone together globally. We used to use that to launch our annual strategy, and that made it very hard to coordinate because you had to do that on a very specific time of the year to get ready for the next year. And so now that we've figured out how to do that virtually with kind of this virtual week that we run, it gives us a lot more flexibility on how we think about, bringing the team together, connecting to strategy, and how that can be different to connecting to impact,
Mm.
which is now something that can be done by itself.
I won't sidetrack us with this, but I did a board meeting in the metaverse the other day in VR, and oh my God, it was amazing. This is how we'll be able to do some of this stuff in the future. But anyway, let's not go down there because I've got a couple of questions that I want to get through. We call it Make It Happen in a Minute. 5 questions developed by Anna that we move through in reasonably rapid fashion. You ready to get into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Uh, number one, what's your favorite toilet related joke or fact that most people wouldn't have heard of?
I tell this joke all the time, and I'm still surprised by how many people don't know the punchline. And it's my 5-year-old's favorite joke. So, why did the toilet paper roll down the hill?
I don't know
Do you know the
why. No.
answer? To get to the bottom.
Hey, my 5-year-old is going to love that when I tell him tonight. That's good.
The other stat there that's interesting is there's more mobile phones in the world than toilets, which or more people have a mobile phone than a toilet, which is kind of crazy that, like when you think about the hierarchy of needs, that's the way that the world's going. Yeah.
I was going to try and say, like, is it easier to share a toilet or a mobile phone? I don't know. It still means everyone should have access. Question number 2. What's one way? This is cool. It's riffing on something we've talked about, but it's a new version of it. What's one way business owners can bring more delight into their day-to-day activities?
Into their day-to-day activities. I really come back to this belief, this philosophy of be in the business of delight.
Mm,
So forget what you sell and think about how you can deliver delight, whether that's to your employees or to your customers, and changing up your mindset
mm,
around how you think about that, I think creates a lot of
mm.
opportunities to do things differently. Like we put lots of jokes through our communications. We um, think about our customer service as being first frictionless and then second having an element of delight, and we put budgets behind that so that our customer service, our customer happiness team can go and delight
Oh,
customers with a
cool.
budget, when they think that they can go above and beyond. And so that doesn't make sense if you're trying to sell someone toilet paper to like spend money on delighting someone, but it like be in the business of delight and you start to see amazing
Yeah.
things happen.
But it does make sense because that's how you differentiate and that's how you build relationship and that's how you have loyal customers. So most people don't think of it, but it's how you get it done. Question number 3. If you were just starting Who Gives a Crap today, would you sit on a toilet for 50 hours again for your crowdfunding campaign, or would you try something different?
I think that yes, the initial crowdfunding campaign was such an amazing way to get started. The virality that came from pledging to sit on a toilet on a live feed until we hit our pre-sales target was awesome. I would fall apart. I'm 12 years older or whatever, 10 years older than what I was when I did that. There is no way my body would let me do that today. So if I could wind back time, would I do it again? For sure. Would I do it again today? Like, I don't think it would be possible.
Good answer. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Would the 12-year younger you do it? Yes. Question number 4. What's your number one indicator of future success in a potential employee?
I think like really this comes back to like the hunger to learn, the passion for learning and being intrigued. Learning I think has two elements to it. One is where you have directed learning, where someone's training you how to do something,
Mm,
and the other is being inquisitive. I call it turning over the rocks to see what's
mm,
under them. So, I love that idea of people getting given something and then wanting to like turn over the rocks to see if there's something under there, then turn over the
mm,
next one until they find a bug and say, well, what is that?
mm.
What is that interesting insect that's under this rock? And keeping on going. And so I think about those two elements of learning. And when you get them combined in an individual, it's incredibly powerful because they can learn things very quickly in a direct environment, but also help you to find things that you might not have seen yourself by being intrigued and inquisitive.
An idea for a new interview technique here. You could make basically your own version of an escape room for the interview. And they have some instructions, but also some clues around the place. And if they follow the instructions and find all the clues, great employee. if they want to still work for you.
Yeah, I mean, we did an escape room as a company a few years back, and I found myself standing in the room directing people to do things, which was a really strange experience when I was always the person that would go and try and solve the
Yeah.
problem. So, it might be a challenging interview environment depending on what role you're hiring for, I think. But yeah.
All right, final question. Then we'll wrap up with some final comments. If someone wants to stand out to make an impact on the world at scale, what's the one thing they need to do to make it happen?
So this is a really interesting question because you're saying at scale. And when you think about, the problem we're trying to solve, there's 2 billion people globally without access to adequate sanitation today. And so the at scale part of this basically means that if you can't impact at least a million people, then you're not able to even start to put a dent in the problem. And you probably need to find a different solution to go after it.
Mm,
And
mm,
so always asking yourselves, is this the idea that can help us impact, at least a million people, hopefully many, many more than that. But at least a million people, I think, is the kind of baseline that you have to set before you go after ideas that can operate at massive scale.
And I mean, follow on question for me, how does that work with the kind of idea of just like testing something, getting your idea up, seeing if there's a bit of traction? Do you have to evolve the idea as you go along so it can scale to a million people? Or is it like try it out? And if that hasn't got the scalable potential, just try and like pivot slightly or move to a parallel idea that can scale? You got some thoughts around that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the first time you test something, you're just trying to understand whether someone will buy this product and want to buy it
Mm,
again. You're not trying to test out whether this idea can be the thing that uh, gets you to the impacting a million people's lives. And so for me, that's a test that comes later on,
mm,
or it's the overall objective that you've got, but the objective of this first test will be quite different to that. And so you sort of have to build up to that objective over time,
mm.
or have a hypothesis that, you know, after you've done many iterations, you'll start to understand the virality of what you're doing and therefore how many people it can reach. And that can be, the starting point of understanding whether you can reach that scale over time.
Yeah, awesome. Simon Griffiths, it's been a really great conversation. There's so much we haven't even touched on. I mean, I know you guys are turbocharging your growth. You're also making a lot of impact. You've got brilliant stories as well. So for anyone listening that isn't already who gives a crap customer, go and check them out because I think it's really inspiring. So well done on 12 years of hard graft, making an impact. It's so good to see just how much more impact you've been able to make over the last couple of years. Obviously, not without its challenges. Thanks for coming and sharing your story.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you learned something in the episode that you can apply to your business straight away. To keep learning with us, make sure you subscribe and also hit the bell icon so you're notified of new episodes when they're released. You can also follow us on @TheEntourageOfficial on all the social media platforms. So thank you, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode.